And we are live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of Full Operations. It's now called to order. I'd ask that you rise as you are able for the reading of the invocation. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us not forget those who served our community and who are no longer with us so that we can continue to do the work we must in their memory. Please be seated. Deputy Clerk, the roll call has been taken. Thank you. I'd like to remind members of council, staff, and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for hybrid meetings. For those staff and delegates joining electronically, please keep your video and microphones off until requested by the moderator or members of council. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. Members of the committee, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for items appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to separations. The following items will automatically be separated tonight. Item 6.1.1 as there's a presentation, and item 6.1.6 as there will be an amendment. Are there any other items that committee would like to separate for discussion purposes? Councillor Martin.
You got 6.1.2.
Thank you. Mayor Davis.
6.2.2.
Okay, seeing no others. Councillor Van Tilburg, can you please move the motion to approve all items for consideration and consent not separated for discussion purposes?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Chris, would you mind putting that on the screen for me? I don't have an agenda by which to work.
Did I just get clarification? Did I hear 6.1.2 was separated?
Yes, it's separated.
Thank you. That all items contained for consideration consent 6.1 and 6.2 not separated for discussion purposes be approved. Thank you.
I'll now call the vote for items not separated for discussion purposes. And I'd ask the Deputy Clerk to please read the titles of the items that are subject to this vote and then proceed to vote.
Just have we can vote first and then I can read the title.
Go ahead and vote, folks, and then we'll list the titles that were subject to the vote.
All items not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of the committee vote in favor are as follows: Councillors Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis. The following items were subject to the vote. Item 6.1.3, Balmore Drive at Oxford Street, all-way stop control. Item 6.1.4, fire route on private property. Item 6.1.5, Park Road North, parking and traffic control to accommodate on-street parking. Item 6.1.7, standardization of audible push buttons. Item 6.1.8, Museum Sustainability Plan Improvement Progress Update. Item 6.1.9, letter of agreement for the 2021-2022 dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation program from the Ministry of Transportation. And item 6.2.1, minutes of the Committee of the Whole Operations, January 11th, 2022 meeting.
Thank you. Members of the committee, there's one presentation on tonight's agenda. We have Cara Davey, Arts and Culture Development Officer, and Kevin DeCock, Economic Development Officer. And I'd like to call on them. I believe they're both virtual. And just a reminder that there's 10 minutes to present and that questions will be held on the item until the items on the floor during the debate portion of the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kara Davey, Arts and Culture Development Officer.
And I'm Kevin DeCook, Economic Development Officer.
Thank you for having us. We are excited to highlight Brantford's filming success in 2021. Kevin and I work collaboratively as film liaisons to market Brantford's film-friendly assets and attract productions to the city every year. We also facilitate discussions internally to improve the experience for the production, city staff, and the community as a whole. Next slide, please.
The impact of the pandemic changes on a day-to-day basis. And with the province's reopening Ontario framework, filming is permitted within the province in all 5 stages, including lockdown. The province of Ontario advised on January 12, 2021, that filming was safe enough to continue even during the stay-at-home orders, if productions adhere to the public health measures listed in the red zone. This is due in large part to the stringent standards and efforts put in place within the film industry, with commercial productions taking extraordinary steps to secure the safety of their cast and crew through the use of daily screenings and rapid tests.
Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Filming continues to flourish in Canada, and Brantford is trending in the same direction. In February 2021, Netflix announced it would be making a new home for itself in Canada, choosing Toronto for its flagship office. This is excellent news for the province, which is already seeing an uptick in inquiries from Netflix productions. Brantford welcomed 12 filming projects in 2021, which is a new record for the city. The list includes 7 distinct productions, including 1 independent feature film and 6 television series. The city was pleased to welcome back the cast and crews from All Around Champion, as well as Mayday twice, and 2 new productions such as Amazon Prime's The Boys, Netflix's Lock and Key, also twice, and HBO Max's Station 11. Paramount Plus launched their brand new streaming platform with Mayor of Kingstown, a gritty drama that stars Oscar nominee Jeremy Renner and Emmy Award winner Kyle Chandler. This production filmed in Brantford 4 times in 2021. Next slide, please.
In 2018, staff began working with film productions and city staff to understand the needs, limitations, and processes involved in supporting local filming activities. That same year, the city welcomed 4 projects and roughly 300 total cast and crew with an estimated 31 days of filming activities, and received approximately $15,000 to $20,000 in estimated city billing and revenues. In 2021, Brantford welcomed a total of 12 projects. Overall, we saw 50 general inquiries, an estimated $1.16 million in Brantford specific budgets, an estimated $220,000 in city billed costs and revenues, nearly 1,500 estimated hotel nights, 116 estimated total prep, filming, and wrap days in Brantford, and approximately 1,080 total cast and crew working in Brantford. City staff are working with other municipalities as well as Ontario Creates to develop a formula that accurately measures local impact. Ontario Creates has retained Nordicity Research to assist with this process. Next slide, please.
Economic Development and Tourism staff work closely with Ontario Creates, the Ontario Film Commission, on film investment and attraction efforts. The OC website is an incredible resource for filmmakers looking for workers, talent, and locations. Economic Development and Tourism staff actively participate in weekly calls with Ontario Creates and submit potential locations for consideration with new project opportunities. In 2021, city staff had 20 locations in Brantford photographed for the OC library. We hosted multiple full-day familiarization tours and developed a photo-heavy 8-page winter lookbook highlighting beautiful snow-covered local assets alongside the Communications and Community Engagement Department. City staff also partnered with Camp Bay Media to release a 3-minute highlight reel of Brantford's film-friendly locations, and we had the video featured at the TIFF conference held virtually in September. Next slide, please. Using Arcgis technology, city staff created the Film Story Map this year. This is a virtual representation of filming in Brantford through which users can search by production or location. It's a handy tool used to attract and drive film-based tourism. In ongoing efforts to keep city staff and the community informed of upcoming productions, city staff releases information updates and film notices prior to a production's arrival. Staff also develops quarterly film e-newsletters that targets Ontario film location professionals while highlighting exciting industry news and recent productions in Brantford. Next slide, please.
Filming efforts are centralized and streamlined through the Economic Development and Tourism Department. Recognizing that the film industry touches many departments, staff formed a cross-departmental internal working group in 2020 that continues to meet quarterly to collect input from other departments and to ensure that all staff is on the same page with regards to permits, fees, and processing. Economic development staff also created a municipal regional film discussion group with other film liaisons in neighboring or similar sized Ontario municipalities in 2020 to create a network of support and response to changing protocols in the industry brought on by the pandemic. This group met monthly throughout 2021 and continues to meet even now and helps staff to compare fees, permits, and processes in order to meet and create a streamlined effort in Southern Ontario. Next slide, please. Through the encouragement of municipal staff, many past productions have taken to giving back to the community in more tangible and long-term ways through legacy projects. Some givebacks exemplify the commitment of the film industry by enhancing relationships with leaders, businesses, and residents in Brantford. In 2021, staff secured support commitments of $9,150 from productions through donations to local projects and community groups, including Brantford Food Bank, Downtown Brantford Business Improvement Area, Glenhurst Art Gallery of Brant, Nova Vita, Sanderson Center for the Performing Arts, and Victim Services, among others. Next slide, please.
Economic Development and Tourism staff expects that the number of productions filming in Brantford will increase once again in 2022. Plans are underway to increase marketing efforts in order to attract new productions. City staff will continue to develop film-friendly brochures and marketing materials, including more in the series of lookbooks. Fam tours continue to be a successful marketing and word-of-mouth tool, so city staff will invite more locations managers and industry leaders to Brantford for full-day scouting opportunities. Increased partnership with local hotels and restaurants will also help to create discounts and packages to entice productions to support local while they are here and possibly extend their trip. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We will now open up the floor for any questions or comments.
Thank you. We'll leave questions until this item's up for debate, which luckily enough is the next item. So the committee will now consider items that were separated for discussion purposes. Councillor Martin, would you please read the motion to place all separated items for consideration and consent not previously voted on the floor, please?
Thank you. I move, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that all items for consent 6.1 and 6.2 separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Thank you. So the first item we have separated because of the presentation is 6.1.1 2021 Film Annual Report. Do we have any questions? All right, I see Councillor Utley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Cara and Kevin. Thank you both very much for your presentation. What do these film companies like about Brantford? What attracts them here?
I can speak to that. There's a number of factors that draw film to Brantford. The first is our locations. Film in Ontario has expanded exceptionally in the last decade or so. And centers in and around Toronto, from time to time, are experiencing film fatigue. So productions that have the means to push out further from Toronto are looking for new locations, and Brantford offers a lot of that. What we're also experiencing is that films that have, or professionals who have filmed here before, they've had a great experience overall. And it really makes them top of mind when considering places to film again, when they make recommendations. And we're seeing the importance of relationship and providing the best service that we can. So that would be a second factor. And I think the third is what we've kind of highlighted through the presentation is the uniqueness of how our city departments work together to try and make this as smooth a transition as possible for filming. Understanding that there are always challenges and each project is different, but the ability for us to work together and to problem solve and to give solutions really makes a difference when it comes to filming.
Thank you, Kevin. I've got one more question, Madam Chair. Kevin, how big a factor is our heritage in the city? I noticed that I can't remember the name of the production now, but was it Mayor of Kingston? There's a beautiful old home on William Street. How big a factor are those beautiful homes that we have in our heritage districts?
I can tell you that older buildings and settings, heritage settings, are of great interest to film productions, not just in Brantford, across Ontario, and really across North America. So being able to film and to make that look, for instance, there is a new production that is looking at filming downtown in and around Victoria Square. And the beauty of the square and the architecture surrounding it are a great attraction. So they do factor heavily in terms of location filming outside of the studio. And we are fortunate enough in Brantford to have a rich architectural history and heritage to offer that.
And lastly, Kevin, is there anything we could be doing better?
I think that us, along with many municipalities in Ontario, is learning how we can streamline, make it a little bit easier from municipality to municipality. So if a production does come to Brantford, that they would expect similar requirements and similar processes as they might find in other jurisdictions. And just continuing to work better and find more efficiencies here amongst ourselves to become more customer service friendly, and to ensure that we're serving the needs of our citizens and our businesses, while also understanding how we can be open for business for film. It is a balance, and we see every day as we work with staff the willingness to try and make that better.
Thanks very much, Kevin and Cara.
Thank you. Right on time. Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Chair Antosky. So first and foremost, spectacular to you and the whole department for everything that you're doing to promote film and production in Brantford. It's amazing. So I've got a couple of questions. First question is regarding a record of this for the public. So I know that I saw online, and whoever did it, brilliant work, digital catalog of locations. I'm wondering if you could comment on that a little bit regarding like what work's being done to talk about, like, so the public knows what's being produced here. But additional to that, I was wondering if there was any thought given to any on-site markers. Now, I understand that we couldn't put like a flag or a sign or a billboard or a poster up on every location that was filmed, but for very popular forms of media, would there be some sort of marker saying that, you know, so-and-so filmed here? Then additional to that, what about at the tourism center? When people come to Brantford and they stop by the tourism center, the new one up at the Wayne Gretzky Sports Center, do they get told like, hey, your popular show is filmed here, go check it out? And the next item I wanted to ask about, just because I'll just ask my questions and let you guys answer, feedback from the public. So I've been to a number of these sites here in the community, and it's incredible. And it's wonderful because it's, you know, one of the many things that puts Brantford on the map, and it inspires hometown pride like I've never seen before when people, you know, see locations that were filmed on TV all over social media. But what do the people who live in the neighborhoods and the community and the business owners, what is their feedback on these productions? And I mean, I know that there's been a lot of good feedback, but I would really like to play devil's advocate and hear some of the concerns too. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Through the chair to you, Councillor Wall, thank you for the compliments on the portfolio. It's an exciting one to work on. I'll start with your first question because it was myself and another staff member that developed the Arcgis Story Map. We had done this project the year before with public art. So we mapped out all of the city's public art collection on an Arcgis Story Map so that visitors who are coming to see one monument can see what is in the neighborhood and visit other monuments. I noticed that Cambridge was doing this with film as well, and Cambridge has an equally robust film attraction as Brantford. So we kind of piggybacked on that idea and what we had developed already with public art to make this accessible for film. And the response has been really positive from the community. Everything we post online about filming receives a really positive response. So this was just one step further to kind of go way back into our archives of filming projects we haven't featured recently to remind everyone of what's been happening. So I do see opportunities, you kind of alluded to this, with what we can do next. A couple years ago, Schitt's Creek filmed here, and a Schitt's Creek specific fam tour was created where you could go from community to community and see all of the Schitt's Creek film across the board. Well, we could do that with a number of productions, but the one that comes to mind is Handmaids, because they've come to Brantford 4 times now, and there's municipalities adjacent to us who have also welcomed Handmaids now. So that would be kind of a production specific marketing we could do. We have most of our marketing opportunities are online, and that's because of the nature of the communication between city staff and productions. There's not as many opportunities to hand a printed brochure. So we do a lot of that digitally, and then we share it on social media and our website. So as far as having people come into the new tourism desk, that's a wonderful idea that I think we're going to have to implement, is having, something printed for them, because we already have that written and shared online, and we can develop something to point, visitors to that film tourism that we're trying to drive. And then you also mentioned signage at the actual location. That's something we haven't specifically gone down the route of, especially with a lot of heritage properties. We would need approval from Heritage Committee, and there's an extra layer there of how much markup we can do on site.
And then public feedback, positive, negative, and other. And thank you for all of that. That was amazing.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Wall. In terms of public feedback, what we have heard is generally very positive. One of the things that we try and do when a production comes is to ensure that they work closely with local stakeholders, residents that are impacted, especially businesses in the downtown, working with the BIA. So we have had very positive responses overall. Over the last 2 or 3 years, there have been a few complaints that have come in, sometimes about productions maybe starting before a certain time that was indicated on a letter. Sometimes there was damage to a fence that may have been done. And we've worked with business owners or with the residents to try and address those concerns. And what our practice is to work closely with the production, but it is ultimately the responsibility of that production, as it would be like a construction company, to try and resolve those issues. So there have been a few, they're very small, none have escalated to the point where we've had great concern. And overall, the feedback is very positive. And again, business owners that are impacted work very closely with the productions. And we've heard feedback from the BIA and from others that this works well, and we'll continue to use this and try and improve upon it as we hear suggestions.
I'm out of time, Chair.
You actually had extra time because I had a mic issue here. So we can put you back on the list if you'd like.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Walk. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question. Do we actively and aggressively go out there recruiting? Or do we wait for them to call us?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Sless, it's a bit of both. We do actively market. We have marketing brochures. We sit on weekly calls with Ontario Creates, and they have broken it up where they have someone, a number of people actually, who share their ongoing portfolios. So they're basically saying what a production is looking for, and then Kevin and I work to come up with our assets and how they match up with the production's need. And what we often find is that Brantford can double as almost anywhere. It can be that small town, it can be a big city. So we work to promote what we have according to what the needs of the industry are. But we also, advertise with TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival annually. We have our video, we have our e-newsletter. So every production that comes to Brantford, we're getting those contacts and asking for permission to email them so that they're on our regular mailing list. With the selling of several municipal buildings, we've been marketing those as well to try and get attraction to those vacant buildings until they take ownership to try and get leases. So that's one way we market. And then Kevin mentioned in his update as well that word of mouth is so prevalent in the film industry. It's a really small community, and we often find that if you work on one production, you're probably working on multiple. So they carry that word of mouth from their positive experience in Brantford to get their future productions to come back as well.
Okay, no, I was just wondering if like when you hear rumors of something that's going to be filmed or a movie to be made or a TV series start up, are we getting into those folks right away to say, hey, listen, this could be the setting for your movie, or this could be the setting for your I guess instead of sending out blindly brochures and things, are we actually getting in somebody's face and saying, hey, we're exactly what you're looking for?
Through the chair, yes, we're doing that through our Friday weekly calls. We're saying, they're saying what they need, and we're saying, yeah, we have that jail, we have that community park you're looking for, you have that residential neighborhood, industrial field, whatever it may be. Kevin and I are on top of that weekly.
Provide counsel with.
Good, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Councillor Wall, second time. Oh, sorry, I've got Councillor Carpenter for first time.
Thank you. Yeah, I won't need 6 minutes. I just want to have one question because all the rest have been asked. And congratulations, first of all, for everything that's happened here. And it is exciting. What's the process for informing the residents, if their street's going to be, before we grant permission, is there a process to consult with the residents, the neighborhoods that are being impacted?
Through the chair, yes, there is a process. It's not so much a consultation unless those neighborhoods have been impacted significantly through multiple productions in a short period of time. The process is similar to any right-of-way occupancy permit application where they're looking to get a road closure. So we work closely with the operations services, and we ask that diagrams and an impact map be shared, that a letter of notification goes out to the residents in advance, letting them know what the planned activities are, what the impacts are, if there's any road closures, and then what some of the alternatives are for supporting that. If we, within the policy, there is reference that we as film liaison staff can ask for some kind of consent from residents, whether it be signatures or whether it be, a circulation of a letter, and then if they choose to opt out or have any concerns, that it would go to other production or to us. We haven't had to use that yet because the frequency of use within one area hasn't really reached a threshold of concern that we've seen yet.
Okay, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Councillor Wall, second time.
You're on mute, Councillor Wall.
You need to unmute, yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully that didn't eat up too much of my time. Councillor Carpenter hit the nail on the head when it came to public consultation. I wanted to know about that process. So now I have two more questions. First question is regarding city resources and what is committed to a film production when it comes in regards to emergency services, police, blockades, barriers, utilities, power, water. How is that tracked and recorded? And are there any sort of special, so the city resources allocated to film productions and costs and staff time and resources. And then my second line of questioning is regarding, I'll let you answer that, sorry.
Thank you. Through the chair, each city department we work with has their standard processes and procedures for dealing with any kind of special request like this. In terms of tracking it, we do have, this past year, we worked on a consolidated billing through the AIG system, working closely with finance and other departments. So that's one way that we actually track the spending levels or the cost levels. And those costs are passed on to us directly by each department, and we consolidate that in the form of one or several consolidated invoices to the customer to make it simpler for them, and it also improves our tracking purposes. In terms of the resources from each department that's committed to it, we don't track that internally on our in our department here. We do track our time, and we track each of the different projects that come in, but the nature of each project is so unique. And for example, the production that is coming into in and around Victoria Square, they're looking at having many police officers supporting it, paid duty officers, over the course of about 2 to 3 weeks.
At their cost or our cost? So
they will pay ultimately for it. We bill upfront for a portion of it, and it's a paid duty officer rate plus cruiser rate, and if there's a sergeant involved. And we pass on all kinds of different costs, whether it be the rental of a space, such as the Civic Center, if there's additional staff that's required. We let productions know in advance what that can be. And if they want that level of service and support, then those additional costs are passed on. And so the financials we do track because we're invoicing them. The per hours will differ from each department, but we have a sense that each department tracks that differently in terms of their general business operations.
okay, and then the second question is regarding, are many of these productions that are coming to town, all the labor that's involved, all the people who are working on the sets, all the contractors, people designing building stuff, are they kind of coming plug and play and they're bringing in employees, or are we finding that they're hiring local people in any capacity, whether it's even 1% or more?
Yes, through the chair, most productions will come with their crew that they work with, and they will, for consistency, for terms that are around unionization, for whatever the contracts that they have. Most of them do have that plug and play. As needed, if they need additional support, there are opportunities to hire locally, but we find that most of them come. It is essentially like a traveling roadshow. They have everything under one banner. All of their expertise, how they work together. And quite often what we're finding is that they might have 6 or 7 or 8 locations in a filming block, and Brantford might be one of them in Southern Ontario. And so they do travel around to that. As much as possible, we like to encourage to hire local or use local resources, but the reality is a lot of these are set up in such a way that, much like a construction company, where they will use their own resources that they know and have good relationships with, and they'll follow their union contracts and such to make sure that they're covering that off at the same time.
You guys don't miss a beat. Thank you so much. I love that you had answers to every one of my questions. And again, stupendous work. This is spectacular for our community, and I'm so happy to hear this report. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Oh, I see Councilor Martin.
Thank you. Just one question. A lot of the film productions require extras. Is there any mechanism in place to have a list of people from Brantford who would like to be extras, so that you can send out an email to those people for a particular film shoot? Like maybe you need people dressed in 60s costumes, or for a night out kind of thing for a film. Is that something that we've looked at?
Through the chair, the casting is done by the production. So we do have a production coming, Kevin's mentioned, around Victoria Square. They're going to be issuing a local casting call. They're looking for approximately 450 background performers. So that will be issued on their end, but we're going to help amplify that message on our end through our social media and website as well. Okay,
it might help to have a list of people who want to be extras as well, so that when a production company is looking for extras, you can say, well, here's an email list you can blast out to for people who are interested. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I see Councilor McCreary now, please.
Madam Chair, thank you. And if any of the film companies are watching, I can't help but think that the presence of Councillor Martin in an extra role is bound to boost ticket sales.
All right, I see no further hands, so I will call the vote on this item.
Item 6.1.1, 2021 Film Annual Report carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstel, Antosky, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our next separated item, which is 6.1.2, 44 Arcgis Street. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. A lot of this work is being done for the benefit of the warehouse. Is there any mechanism where we can have them pay for some of the costs for these changes to the boulevard and the signs?
Through the chair, Mark Jacklin, Director of Operational Services. Ultimately, the change should have been made during the design phase back in 2018. Ultimately, we didn't know at the time. It was the old Keep Right building. So it's very possible they didn't take that into consideration, what might be future uses for that. That is our apron and our driveway. And ultimately, it is city property. We could reach out to the company to see if they'd be interested in fitting some of this bill, if that's what council would like.
Did they have any input into the design changes that are incorporated there?
Through the chair, the design phase that we came up with through this report?
Yes.
Through the chair, that's correct. Well, we did chat with them, and it was ultimately we decided together that would be the best approach to help alleviate, make the turn much easier than it is.
Thank you. Councillor Van Tilburg, please.
We've got a picture, and that picture shows the tractor trailers navigating and crossing on their own boulevard. There was another picture that I had floated towards staff that shows the tractor trailers across the road and on the neighbor's boulevard when the cars aren't parked in the parking spot. Is there any reason why that picture wasn't shown in the report so that the other councillors could see the tractor trailer on the front lawn on the boulevard of the house across the street?
Through the chair, there's no actual particular reason. There was
Okay.
one picture that was shown in the, obviously showing what the challenges are.
And that picture also had the person that was to guide them not to drive onto the property standing there while that tractor trailer was on the property. So we're doing something that I think is look, we're half in and we're half out on this, and I agree that it is a problem of the design that affected the Keep Right building. The Keep Right building had been repurposed and has been in use for 15, 20 years, because I was in it back in 2007 for at least 3 years. So that wasn't new. That building was in operation. It certainly was in operation at the time that we did the road changes. And those road changes I had actually complained about, stating that it would cause future problems, and it has. And it's caused future problems for two people, the resident across the street and the business. So I believe what we have managed to achieve here is deciding whose boulevard they're going to cross. Is it going to be on the neighbor's boulevard if we take the parking out? Or is it going to be on their own boulevard if we leave things as they are? Since when we leave things on as they are, they drive over and damage their own side of the boulevard. If we're going to open and widen that boulevard,
that is somewhat of a Band-Aid, but it is working to address the issue of us when we shrunk the road. The road is 4 meters shorter across since we did that change. So this is a bit of a self-inflicted wound, and I think we all recognize that. And I'm still trying to do my best to make as many people happy and as possible. I'm thinking what we could do is separate this, receive the report A, that we could vote down B, that is the changing of the parking again, that we could vote down C, that we could support D. Supporting D allows that work to be done, and we can see how that goes. And then E be amended so that it strikes out anything regarding the parking control, and that the monies up to 2,500 be funded. Because if we're willing to accept that we're paying for the damage because of flawed road design, one would assume that we would be able to pay, the city would be paying the damage for any changes that affect the boulevard on the other side. And right now we've got this conflicting purpose where each time the company has to, because of a change, go on to the resident across the street's boulevard, they may not pay, they may not be active. The fact is it shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't have had a design like that. So I believe that this is a compromise. I'm hoping that councilors following this could support those changes and we could get something achieved. Otherwise, I would suggest we vote the whole thing down.
Right on 4 minutes, Councillor Van Tilburg. So you're asking for each item to be separated?
Yes.
Yeah, each individually voted on. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other speakers? I have Councillor Carpenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you're doing a fine job today. I just would like to know from staff, what was the response from the residents? I think there's about 8 residents that will lose parking during the day.
Through the chair, the residents received a letter and the information was contained in the back of the report, the comments from each resident.
Yeah, and they weren't in favor.
Through the chair, there was a few residents that didn't, and then there was obviously residents who were okay with it.
Is it, would it be feasible to put bollards in to keep them off of the boulevard? Because we saw in the report that this company has access to other loading docks. They just don't want to go through. They rented it to different people for leased storage space, but there isn't walls separating that storage space. Because I don't recall when the last time we had a building inspector in there to look to see what they've done when we had difficulties with the hole in the roof that remained there for a number of years. So I don't know the work that they've done in that building. What's stored in that building? We should certainly know about what's stored in that building. It is surrounded by residential neighborhood. We've had these issues before, and I'd like to know what's stored in that building. But they have access to a number of loading docks to that building, and if this building was being built there today, we certainly wouldn't be approving this loading dock. So I just some concern about all of a sudden now the neighbors, the residential neighborhood, has to give up their parking rights because this property, the owner of this property, decided to lease space out independently. No walls are up, so you can still load at the back and tow motor it right straight through the aisleway. Hopefully the aisleways, I believe, have to be wide enough anyways for a tow motor. I think that's law. And then they could just simply drop it off to where they need to drop it off at. There's other options here other than the neighborhood having to sacrifice. Just saying. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Councillor Carpenter. We have Councillor Van der Stelp next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, how many similar situations have we come across in recent memory where design and construction ended up making the turning radiuses a lot smaller and the access point 4 meters skinnier, as I understand it? Is this something that we commonly stumble on, or is this a one-off?
Through the chair, this is, as far as I know, this is a one-off.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I see no, oh, sorry, Mayor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I'm a little bit confused, Mark. Originally, there was 1, 2, 3. I think there was 10 properties that the parking would be impacted. And do I read it correctly? There's now just it'll affect 2 properties, 35 and 37.
Through the chair, that's correct.
All right, so that it's not 8 residents it affects. So you also mentioned that you have a response from the residents. It's in the report, but I don't see anything in the report that is a quote or a comment by either of those 2 residences, for those that occupy or own those 2 residences. Maybe I missed it, but is it in there?
Through the chair, I'd take a second. The comments normally come in and they're appended to the report.
Yeah, the problem we have though, Mark, is it's not in here. I can't see it.
Through you, Chair, Mayor Davis, there's one comment, one resident in the old report, the previous report that was deferred, brought back. It's under input from other sources. And it does state that one resident did oppose the requested parking restriction because they indicated that the tractor trailers that back into 44 Elgin is a safety hazard. The trucks come up on their driveway boulevard. When they are backing into the warehouse, they feel it is a safety issue because children play out front of the house, south side of Elgin. So there's that one comment that Mark alluded to. It's in the report under input from other sources.
All right, so do we know what the residents at 35 and 37, what their input is, if any?
Yeah, that, Mark, you'll have to call in your staff, but that one resident there, I'm not sure what address that's from actually, so it wasn't specified in the report.
Through the chair, I see.
Yes, I see that Mr. Ferguson is here. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. Through the chair, David Ferguson, Manager Traffic Services. So that comment was made by the resident of 35. He has been vocal and has made numerous comments. So we have been in discussions with him.
And so given what's been done here is you've significantly reduced the size of the area where there'd be no parking, right? So previously it was 12 homes would be impacted, the parking in front of those homes, and now it's just 2. I want to make sure I got that right. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
All right. So one of the 2 is concerned about it. The 2 remaining properties are impacted by it.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thanks. Just want to make sure I had the facts straight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you. What a uniquely situational issue that is being discussed here today. Page 4 of the report, second bullet point. It's increasingly stressful for warehouse staff because no one will come to their door when we ask them if they will move their vehicles. We've even offered them free parking on the lot beside their homes to no avail. Can you elaborate on that? Please, and then I'm going to ask a couple more questions real quick. When this was originally presented, I think it was very black and white, and it's become more of like a rainbow now. Is it either or, like a one or the other? Like, are there other places in Brantford where this is an issue and it's happened? Like, I understand that like the homeowners have rights, but it's like property owners have rights, right? So the people who own the building have, it's difficult here, right? Like we're put in this really difficult position where like nobody's rights trump anybody else's rights. And there's gotta be a way, like we own the road. Well, the taxpayers own the road, but you know, we represent the taxpayers. I don't understand why we can't just fix this and make everyone happy. Is there not an avenue that can make everyone happy in this. So please elaborate on the whole free parking being offered to the owners. Because if they're mad that they're just losing 2 parking spots and then they're being offered 2 parking spots, and that can be somewhere written in writing and proved, I mean, that seems like a pretty valid compromise, but is it not accurate? Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Through the chair. So that we have had a number of discussions with the business manager, and they have been working to try to rectify the issue. They have offered, as they mentioned, an opportunity for the resident to park their vehicles on the property. They have also, as we've outlined in this report, they've also agreed to reduce the parking restriction hours that were originally reported, so that they have less of an impact on the residents. And again, as Councilor Van Tilburg mentioned, really this stems from the whole limiting or reducing the width of the road, that 4 meters. And so what's happening is, as the vehicles backing in, because we're dealing with 18-wheeler vehicles, that cab uses, we'll call it the parking area, to make that turn to be able to back in. So
David,
that's really
just in
what
the,
the issue is.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I do get that, and I appreciate you explaining it to me. Is this I feel like we're just dealing with a problem from the past that is now rearing its ugly head. And it's like, is this because it's been grandfathered in, or just because it wasn't planned to be like this? Like, I feel like, I'm not trying to put you in a complicated spot, or you and your team, but ultimately you guys are the experts. You're the ones who control and manage our roads and traffic and all this stuff. What are we supposed to do here? Like, what is the right move to make it safe for everyone? Because that's all I care about, to be perfectly honest, is that this neighborhood is as safe as possible for the families, the moms, the dads, the kids, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents that live there. And unfortunately, the business owner, they knew that, what is the right move here? Like, you tell us, please.
Through the chair, it would be approval of the recommendations outlined in the report.
Okay, and again, not to put you on the spot here, but is
Councillor
what you're recommending
Councillor
to do
Wall.
what's grandfathered,
Councillor
or are
Wall.
you recommending what we would do if it was
Councillor
built today?
Wall, you're out of
Thank you.
time.
Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. The off-site parking that's been offered, that still doesn't keep trucks off the boulevard, correct?
Through the chair, the intention is by widening the driveway and the apron, it would be the intent that there would be no need for the trucks to go on top of the boulevard.
Okay. And my second question, we heard that the one homeowner is not in agreement with losing his parking in front of his home. Did we not speak to the second homeowner?
Through the chair, there was an opportunity for the homeowner to provide that information when the letters were sent out. But I did want to just clarify one thing, that the parking, since at least 2018, there was no parking on that side between 8 to 4. And then through April of 2021, when the new went out, it was all the parking was removed on that street. And it was found that they couldn't make that turn. So we're just asking to implement the 2 parking spots back from originally. None of the properties had parking on that street during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Tilburg, second time, please.
So now we're getting there. I think you're getting a clearer picture. Yes, 8 of the homes will be retaining their parking. The homes that will lose their parking, and both homes complain, they both take pictures of when the tractor trailers back in, when there are no cars parked in the parking space, the tractor trailers go onto their property when they back in. When they put a car there, they seem to be a little more careful, and they don't drive into the car. They stay on the road and they back in to the facility that they're meant to back into. It is problematic because of the changes the recent changes we made to the width of the road. Those are recent. Those are what, less than 4 years old? When they did those changes, it was around the term ago, just at the end of last term, that we changed that road. So it has caused us some headaches. So when you say that somebody's being offered parking, and I know that parking lot, I parked in it across the street. At times, that parking space is blocked by barriers, physical barriers that they put in there. That parking space has not always been accessible. It has been opened up again, but it can be closed. The other part is that parking space can be taken away from them at any time for any reason. It's nice that they could offer that, but quite frankly, that is not certainly an offer that would be in perpetuity. But is it really this? We're not, quite frankly, if we were only talking about a parking space, I don't believe that this would have been bounced once, deferred once, and here we are still trying to sort our way through. The safety problem that is put before us that we are not able to control is the tractor trailers with and without spotters. When there is no car park there, drive up onto the property across the street, onto the boulevard lawn, over the curb, not the driveway. And that's what's got the residents ticked. That's it. And so you say, yeah, we're keeping 8 spots, not the spots that the trucks drive up onto the lawns. You'd have more people ticked. That just happens to be that those are the homes where the tractor trailers drive up onto the lawn. So if we're suggesting that the boulevard should be enough, and we're looking at that turning radius, and yes, it looks tough. That does look tough, but those drivers can do it. And that is why, I'll tell you what, we can do this as a partial now, split it up, not change the parking, see how they make out with their improved boulevard, and we can go from there. Otherwise, you're going to have to convince me that you can design a system that blocks them from driving, because they do, and more than once, drive up onto the neighboring property. In fact, they drove up after they said they weren't going to do it. They were going to have a spotter, and they were being super careful. And the day that we were actually going to have this vote, what did I have? I had a picture of a truck on the lawn. And I can't guarantee to those residents that I can't have that happen again, or that we can't have that happen again. I wouldn't want that. Nobody wants a tractor trailer on your front lawn. So if we could follow a recommendation that I'm putting forward, and that is to receive the report, to vote down B and C, to vote up D, do the repairs on the boulevard on the trucking side, and then to remove the E, an amendment that takes E and removes not to the parking control signage. I believe that's a first step, and I believe it's a compromise. I also believe that we can address the issue of the neighbor and stop the traffic from going onto their lawn. And if I have to do that amendment separately on E, please tell me how that is done. Do we do it at the time of the separation? I think so.
Yeah, I've got a couple of speakers in queue too, so we'll keep going, and I've written down that you've got an amendment. Thank you, Councilor Van Tilburg. Councilor McCreary, please.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I can remember driving down that street as long as I've been driving in this city, and the trucks always would impede the flow of traffic. But it seems as though we've inadvertently created the program by making the street look more attractive on opening day. Maybe not so much now. Mark, the problem seems to be that people are upset because the trucks are on the grass. Is that the issue?
Through the chair, that is correct. There has been, I believe, 2 drivers that have gone across the road onto the grass while trying to back in.
Has there been any thought to replacing the grass with concrete?
Through the chair, that is a possibility. I mean, we could talk to residents. I'm not sure how aesthetically pleasing that would be for them, if that's what they would like, but it is an option.
It's got to be more aesthetically pleasing than mud and tire tracks, I would think. That might be something to pursue. Councillor mentioned earlier that there are a number of other loading docks in the building. Do we know if in fact the building is configured in such a way that every loading dock is available to every tenant?
Through the chair, staff did speak with the owner of the building, and there are numerous other businesses, and it's just really not safe or practical, is what they mentioned to us, for them to be able to unload at a different area.
Sure, yeah. And it probably isn't practical to unload out of doors and then run it in at grade level either. Do you know what commodities come and go through that front door in trucks?
Through the chair, I don't actually know that. There, again, like I mentioned, there's a number of businesses in there.
Yeah, okay. I'm asking because, you know, perhaps it's convenient for the trucking company to run a 40-foot trailer in there, but if, you know, if there's some opportunity for loads that are small in nature to come in on a smaller truck, that might be a worthwhile discussion as well. Although that, you know, that's tenant specific, and if the tenant goes, then you have certainly another opportunity for discussion. Okay, well, those are my questions. I don't know. It seems like we've kind of created this morass with respect to the new design of the street to make it look really good, which was, you know, achieved for a while until the trucks have turned the boulevard into a mud patch. So I'd be looking for a clear, concise point of view from the ward councillors about exactly what they want to do here. I understand there's an amendment that'll be coming, but my first take on it was that it was as clear as mud. So perhaps the two ward councillors can restate that as they move and comment on the amendment that they wish to see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCreary. As to the amendment, we do have a suggestion from our clerk to make this as clean as possible. If I may ask Deputy Clerk for you to come forward, and Councillor Van Tilburg, if you can confirm that this is what you're looking for, please.
Through the chair, if we were to separate each vote and then vote on and then propose an amendment, we wouldn't be able to do that, because once you call the vote, no debate can proceed. What I would suggest is I would move an amendment to strike out clauses B and C and to further amend clause E by striking out the words parking control signage.
Yes.
All right, so seeing no further speakers, we're going to go to the amendment. Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Well, a couple of questions. Some of them are general, but some of them are to the amendment. The curbs in the area, are they barrier curbs or the low restriction curbs?
Through the chair, there'd be barrier curbs
On both sides? Yeah.
Yeah. Except for the driveway access.
Yeah. And what's being proposed here, the intent is to make it so that the trucks don't have to go on the boulevard across the street. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. By widening the driveway, it would reduce significantly the risk of going across the road.
Somebody asked earlier about bollards to stop trucks from going up on the boulevard across the street. Would a higher curb have the same effect without looking unsightly?
Through the chair, I mean, that could be a possibility. We'd have to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Do you have that, Deputy, to put up the amendment up on the screen, please? Thank you. All right, so there's the amendment. I don't see any other speakers in the queue, so we will go to the vote on the amendment, please.
Sorry, point of order. Who seconded the amendment on the floor?
I was just going to ask the same, looking for a seconder.
My apologies, yes. Thank you. We've got Councillor Carpenter.
We're just waiting for Councillor Martin's vote. The amendment to item 6.1.2 carries on a recorded vote of 8-3. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstelt, and Toski, Sokoli, Van Tilburg, McCreary, Utley. Members opposed: Mayor Davis, Councillor Wall, and Councillor Martin.
All right, thank you. Now back to the item as amended. I see no further hands. Could we call the vote on that, please? As amended.
Item 6.1.2 as amended carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstelt, and Toski, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, McCreary, Utley, Mayor Davis. Those opposed: Councillor Wall.
Thank you.
Forgive me, that's not supposed to be a no. I don't want to call for another vote. Could you please correct that in the record?
Yes,
it would make no sense for me to vote no on that. I'm sorry.
The deputy clerk has confirmed that he will correct that on the record.
That was embarrassing. Sorry. Thank you, Deputy Clerk.
All right, we move on to our next item, which is 6.1.6 Powerline Road. Councillor Utley, I believe you have an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do have an amendment. If the clerk will be kind enough to bring that up on screen. Moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless, that item 6.1.6 be amended by striking out clause B and replacing with the following: that staff be directed to reduce the speed limit on Powerline Road between Paris Road and King George Road from 80 kilometers an hour to 60 kilometers an hour, and install posted speed limit signs to reflect the change, and that staff be directed to install flashing warning beacons on the existing intersection ahead, warning signs on Powerline Road located east and west of Balmoral Drive. I'd like to speak to this, Madam Chair. Late last week, there was a fairly serious accident at that location. And I believe, well, I do know that emergency services were called to the scene and treat the injured and the occupants in the vehicles, and I believe the cars were pretty much total. As a result of that accident, Councillor Sless and I talked over the weekend and decided that action needed to be taken. And it just happened to be timely that staff had already prepared a recommendation. So working with staff, we are proposing an amendment to reduce that speed limit to 60 kilometers an hour from King George Road to Paris Road, which is consistent with Powerline Road on the east side of King George Road. So I hope that council will support us with this. The last thing we need is another accident like what happened last week, and I think this just makes the speed limit consistent, and also with the growth coming in, north of Powerline Road, a few years away yet, it makes sense to lay the groundwork for the the residential developments and industrial developments on that road. So I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Utley. Next, we have Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you. Through you to staff, when they made the initial recommendation to go to 70, did they take into consideration that it was 60 on the east side of King George Road?
Through the chair, that was known. Just we followed the policy. When you look outside on the west from Paris Road, it's not urbanized, and so it's just a natural progression to go from 80 to 70, and then when you get into the city, it would be 60.
Okay, well, it's not exactly urban on the east side of King George Road either. It's more of a country rural setting there, but I had marked this to separate this before I saw the amendment. And I was going to suggest that we go to 60 because it is consistent with what's on the east side of King George Road. And I think it's far more appropriate for that stretch to be 60. So I thank Councillor Utley for bringing this amendment forward. It's very appropriate and I'll fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCreary, please.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm pleased to see the ward councillors take action on this long-standing problem. The corridor itself has been problematic for a number of years, and council will probably remember that there was a time when we bylawed no parking on our side of power line prior to the annexation because folks were parking their cars there and letting their kids run across the street to do some tobogganing. So this is a very good move. The reduction in speed will eliminate some of the problem. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mark. Mark, do you know if the vicinity of the intersection of Balmoral and Power Line is double lined as a no passing zone currently?
Through the chair, I don't have that information with me.
Could we make sure that if it's not, that it gets done as part of this work?
Through the chair, I would ask David Ferguson to jump on if that's possible in order to ensure that we can actually do that.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor, we can look at that and add that to our upcoming pavement marking program.
Okay. And the other thing too, I'm by there quite often in the evening, and the light which we have at the corner is, to put it in a general way, a bit dim. Perhaps, guys, you could also look at improving that lighting at the intersection so the entry of traffic is a lot more visible as part of the work that you're going to be doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Carpenter, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Councillor Utley and Councillor Sless for bringing this amendment forward, because Councillor Antosky and I had the same concerns with Powerline Road, and we raised it some time ago. We were even looking for a four-way stop or a three-way stop. It would be at Brantwood and Powerline Road, and staff said that wasn't very feasible at the time because it's the road's going to be urbanized at some time. So what I'd like to do is, with the indulgence of Councillor Utley and Councillor Sless, I'd like to add that the 60 kilometers be to the easterly boundary of the city, because we took in new land and it's 80 kilometers east of Colbeck, and they're coming down that hill of Colbeck at 80 kilometers. It doesn't get to be 60 till farther up. And Brantwood Park Road has had the same kind of serious accident, a couple of them actually. And it's also the place where the kids cross the street to get to Brantwood Farms, and the residents do a lot of shopping at Brantwood Farms. It's very, what I consider, and Councillor Antosky consider, a dangerous intersection. So if I could add, if you could accept it as a friendly amendment, that it go to 60 kilometers to the easterly boundary of Powerline Road in the city. And I'd like to add, I like the idea of your warning beacons, and I'd like to add the same thing, a warning beacon on both sides, on the east and west side of Brantwood Park Road. If you'd accept it as friendly, I'd be happy. I wouldn't have to move an amendment to the amendment. Thank you very much, and thanks for bringing it forward. This is really something that needs to be dealt with, and consistency down that road will go a long ways to reduce the speeding too.
That's friendly.
Councillors, is that, sorry, considered friendly, Councillor Utley? And Councillor Sless, thank you. I see nods.
And
Great.
I hope my ward mate does as well.
Okay, thank you. That's friendly. Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is timely, and it was actually the impetus for this initially was the Windham Hills Association. They have an exit out of their little development out onto Powerline Road, and it was getting very risky to get out. And the association asked that we do this, and that's where the 70 came from. Staff said that it was appropriate to take it down to 70, but then with the accidents happening on the weekend, it made sense to take it down to 60 and to, I think, standardize the speed across the extent of Powerline Road. That just makes logical sense. That I think that was the other thing that the association asked for, and that I've confirmed with staff will happen, although it's not in the resolution, is there will be the no using air brakes will be on the signs posted adjacent to the development on the I guess as you're approaching King George Road on the right hand side, which would be the side of Windham Hills. So that will be coming there as well. According to staff, that they have the liberty to put these signs up. So it's not in the resolution, but the understanding with staff is that will happen. And that again was a request of the Windham Hills Association. So thanks to staff for getting on this. And just for clarity, once you pass Balmoral heading west, does that 60 kilometers stay consistent right out to Paris Road? I believe it does, but I'd like confirmation.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, we have first-time speaker, Councilor Van Tilburg, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you may as well, because it's gonna continue all the way down to Paris Road. So consistency is probably better for the drivers overall, that you're not gonna see up, down, where should I have been? And people get on the road, they see a speed limit. That road really doesn't change very much in its optics. So I think once that they get used to that, it's 60K, which will take a little bit. And they'll realize it's 60 the whole way. I mean, that's ours now. So I'm fully supportive. I was supportive of the 70, but I think for the sake of consistency and saving us a change in about probably 10 years, we can get that done now.
All right, second time speaker, Councilor Atley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to add my thanks to David Ferguson and Mark Jacklin and other staff members who helped us craft the wording of the amendment. Originally, we were going to introduce another resolution, and then we just looked at the 6.1.6 as well. It's already, half of it's already there. So that was just good timing for everyone. But I do appreciate what staff done, and I know Councillor Celeste does as well. I know the neighbours that live across from the end of Powerline Road, and I've often visited them and then tried to cross Powerline Road onto Balmoral. It's just a short hop, but I tell you, those cars coming up at least 80 kilometers in both directions, you got to be real careful there. And unfortunately, somebody wasn't looking. It's at the crest of a hill as well, and that makes it very difficult in the winter months when there's snow drifts, and in the summer when the weeds are growing pretty high. So I like to thank in advance council support here. I really appreciate your comments. I'm sure that Councillor Celeste does as well. And more importantly, that the people that live in the area and use that corridor will be very happy, except those that use it as a speedway to get from A to B as quickly as possible. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Atley. Seeing no further speakers on the amendment, I will call the vote on the amendment.
Through the chair, just waiting for Councillor Sokoli and Councillor McCreary. Yeah. The amendment to item 6.1.6 carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members of the committee vote in favor are as follows: Councillors Celeste, Carpenter, Vanderstelt, Antosky, Sokoli, Martin, Van Tilburg, Wall, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. On the item as amended, I have Councillor Carpenter in the queue, please.
I just wanted the clerk missed the friendly amendment that was accepted by the mover on that, for that extension to go easterly to the easterly boundaries of city boundaries on Powerline Road, and the beacons to be placed at Brantwood Park Road.
Through the chair, that'll be reflected in the minutes and through the committee report to council.
All right, thank you. And thanks again to Councillor Utley and Councillor Celeste.
Okay, seeing no further speakers, we will go to the vote on the item as amended, please.
Item 6.1.6 as amended carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee vote in favor are as follows: Councillors Celeste, Carpenter, Vanderstelt, Antosky, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Right, our next separated item is item 6.2.2 Healthy Kids Annual Update, and Mayor Davis, this is yours.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is mine. Just want to speak briefly about the Healthy Kids program. City's been running it for about 5 years now. It's part of our strategy, our youth and children's strategy. And it's directed to, it's a program that happens once a year at or about the time of March break. It's intended to promote the health and well-being of children in our community and their families. And kind of to begin with, I was told in a nutshell, was to get kids off their phone. And so the idea behind the program is to promote healthy living, healthy lifestyles. Every year it has a different theme. The first year was run, jump, and play. The next year had to do with water. The next year had to do with vegetables, and so on. So last year was kind of focused on cultural activities and also activities that could be done within the home. And that was because, of course, the COVID restrictions in place last March. So my question to staff is, what is the theme this year?
Well, good evening. Aaron Wallace, Director of Community Programs and Social Development through the chair. So the couple answers. One is the really big push this year is going to be how we connect the Healthy Kids program to our early learning sectors, whether that's childcares or parent drop-ins or what you may have. We've been hoping to do that for a year. We know the council kind of created this department to bring children's services and healthy kids and recreation all together. So that's gonna be a really big push. But in terms of the themes and kind of how we want to talk to the community about this program, there's two I'd like to revisit. In 2020, we had Healthy Kids, Healthy Planet. And in 2021, as you mentioned, Mayor Davis, we had Healthy Kids Celebrate Culture. And we did a lot of, I think, really interesting and productive work there, but we didn't do everything we wanted because of the pandemic, and we left some good ideas and some of our partners' good ideas on the table. So what you'll see coming forward is us revisiting those a little bit, particularly as the public health restrictions lift. We know that talking about culture and the natural world is a great way to talk to kids around food and games and activity and self-esteem. So those are the two we'd like to go back to, but with a real focus on how we connect with our early learning sector as we go.
Madam Chair, thank you, Aaron. I mean, it's a great program. I know you spearheaded it since the beginning, and credit to you and your staff. I'm really pleased to hear that you're trying to focus on that connection to early years because, of course, tomorrow at Social Services, we're going to be hearing about a daycare plan, a 10-year plan to increase the number of spaces, licensed spaces throughout the city. So this will be a very good tie-in. Thanks very much, Aaron, for, again, your department, your division, and the forward-looking view that you have in addressing the needs of our youth and children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I've already said it. You're doing a fantastic job here. I noticed in the report, it does say, since it began, the Healthy Kids program has fostered community conversations about importance of physical activity. I would just like to remind all members of council, tobogganing is physical activity. It's fun going down the hill. You still got to walk back up the hill. We shouldn't restrict tobogganing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see no further speakers in the queue, so we'll call the vote on this, please.
The Healthy Kids Annual Update carries unanimously on recorded vote of 11-0. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. That brings us to resolutions. We have 7.1 time limitation exemption permit parking criteria. Councillor Sless, this is your resolution. Would you please state your seconder and go ahead with the resolution?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could get the clerk to please put it on the screen. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Utley. That whereas a time limit exemption permit provides an exemption to on-street parking time limits as outlined in Schedule 30 of the City Parking Bylaw 144-88, and whereas the current parking bylaw 144-88 provides for the issuance of a time limit exemption permit to a qualifying residential premise dwelling unit within 1, 2, or 3 unit families dwelling, and whereas several requests for time limit exemption permits from residents of family dwellings located within a 4-unit family dwelling have been received, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to amend parking bylaw 144-88 and the definition of a qualifying residential dwelling unit to include up to 4 family dwelling units and issue the time limit exemption permits accordingly, and that the necessary bylaws be presented to City Council for adoption. And if I could just speak to that very briefly, Madam Chair. This was all the result of a resident that called me who lives in a building that has 4 units in it that the city approved. It was a large home that was divided into 4 units, but we approved it with 3 parking spaces. So the person in the 4th apartment had no parking space, and the city wouldn't give her a permit to park on the street. So unfortunately, she had nowhere to park, which made no sense because we had approved a 4-unit building, but only 3 parking spots to service it. So I presented that to staff, asking for an exemption for this individual to get a permit. And staff went a step further and said, well, actually, it makes sense to do this with everybody in a 4-unit building. That up to 4, you can apply and get a time exemption permit to park on street. So that's how we got here, and this is where we are. And I would ask council to support this because we've left one poor resident in my ward with no place to put the car. So I think passing this will solve that problem, and I think it'll probably solve problems across the city because it is very restrictive. And if you don't have a place to go, you don't have a place to go. And I've never experienced that, but I imagine it's extremely frustrating. So I would encourage everybody to please support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sless. Next, we have Councillor Van Tilburg, please.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm fully in support of this move. It's wrong for us to say that, you know, we can have a 4th unit, but you can't have a spot to park. If we're not making those spots available at the units, they've got to be somewhere. This is a fair way. I do have a question, though. It was brought to my attention earlier, particularly up in areas of Councillor Sless and Councillor Utley's ward, with regards to what goes on the parking exemption pass that's in the dash of the cars. What is written on them? Is it the street address that's written on that card? If I could get an answer to that question.
Through the chair, that would be my understanding, but I will definitely follow up with the parking department and get that answer for you.
If you could, because ironically, I had that posed to me based on criminal activity, no less. And that some of the streets are very short. And if you have a parking permit to a car on that street, it doesn't take much to put 2 and 2 together. And the people being victimized have figured out that was how that they were doing that, and that had been brought to, there should be an email floating around regarding that. And if there's a way that we could change our address and possibly the permits to maybe just have a number, we know who we're giving the passes to. We know what streets allowed those passes on. Perhaps we don't have to put the street address on the pass. I'm not like, if there's a different way whether it's coded, whatever. But up in that area, particularly up by the hospital, there is a significant amount of unwanted activity. And since that was brought to me, if we could address that or look into it, that's all I'm requesting.
Thank you, Councillor Van Tilburg. Councillor Utley, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to add a quick comment to thank my ward mate for bringing this forward. It makes sense for Ward 2, but as he said, it makes sense for the rest of the city as well. So thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, we'll call the vote, please.
Item 7.1, time limit exemption permit parking criteria carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sless, Carpenter, Van der Stel, Mentosky, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. And our last resolution for the evening is 7.2 Urban Road Cross Section for Winarden Court. And Councillor Utley, this is yours as well. Please state your seconder and go ahead with the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk or Mr. Deputy Clerk, could you bring that resolution up on the screen, please? Thank you.
Councillor Utley, who's your seconder, please?
My seconder is, I'm just going to say, moved by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor John Sless. Whereas Winarden Court is a small street within the city of Brantford, maintained and owned by the city. And whereas Winarden Court, despite its small size, services a large property with an historically significant residence known as Winarden, formerly Yates Castle. And whereas Winarden is home to members of the Talos family who have owned, operated, and maintained Winarden for many decades, preserving the history of the castle and investing in the beautification of the property. And whereas Winarden is also home to tenants who require access to their respective residences by way of both Winarden Court and the walkway that was installed and designed by the property owner. And whereas the owner of Winarden has requested that the municipality invest in repairs to Winarden Court, including repairs to or reconstruction of the abutting walkway, providing access to Winarden, and the installation of curbs or other design improvements to control the flow of water along the roadway. Now, therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report by Q3 2022 with the estimated cost for the design and construction of Winarden Court to an urbanized municipal cross-section in accordance with the city standards and specifications, including improvements to the right-of-way to ensure private property connections are maintained. Madam Chair, I'd just like to speak briefly to this. For some years, rain and meltwater have drained onto the Winarden property for some time. The homeowner has built a retaining wall to protect his home at his expense, and even built a French drain in the last couple of years to draw water away from his property. Winard Court is a lane that is city owned, and I look forward to seeing a staff report in early Q3 assessing the work that needs to be done to improve the road surface and install curbs to prevent water flowing onto the Winarden property. Mr. Talos, the owner, has invested a huge amount of money in his property to beautify it and make it even more historically significant. And I would really appreciate council support on this to get a report back and estimate what the costs are for this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Utley. Councillor Sless, next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would encourage members of council, probably everybody's aware of the home. It's a beautiful, just a gorgeous property. And it's a very, very large property right at the train tracks in the Buffalo Street, Usher Street area. So I think it's home to about 7 or 8 tenants, different housing units within the property. It would be worth a drive down to see what we're talking about in this resolution, because it's really, we have sections of trail that are in better shape than what this roadway is, and it's a city street. There's no curbs and gutters. The water is a very large elevation change from Terrace Hill down to this property. The water flies down there, and there's nothing to prohibit it from going right into this house, and that's exactly what it's been doing. And it's causing damage, and the owner at his own expense has been trying to mitigate that and crying for help to get something done. So this is the start of that process. If there's any way that staff can expedite third quarter and get that done sooner, that would be really appreciated, and I know by the homeowner. He's in dire straits there, and he's pleading for help, and we're trying to do the best we can with limited funding. But if there's a way to look through, it's not a long stretch of road that needs to be done. It's very small, and we've just started picking up garbage now on that road. Before, we were making them carry their garbage nearly a block to the entrance off of the end of Buffalo Street. and where it's actually held right where this roadway is. So we've gotten that changed, but it's not even safe for the garbage trucks to be going up and down the street. It's in that bad of state of repair. So if staff could take that under advisement to, if you can get this done in Q1, that would be excellent. But in any case, it started a process, and hopefully we can get it done sooner rather than later and get this property protected from the water that is threatening the property. So thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sless. I have Councillor McCreary next, please.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I support this initiative by the ward councillors 100%. Congratulations to John and John for their tenacity in pursuing this. As was mentioned, we didn't even have garbage service on that street. And quite frankly, when I first saw it, I thought it was a driveway that belonged to the building. I didn't recognize that it was a municipal street. So it's only reasonable to have a look at this and undertake the work, according to our capital plan and find financing that's available. It is quite a development that exists there, and it really does deserve a decent city profile street access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCreary. Next, I have Councillor Van Tilburg, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you two, I'm not sure if it would be Mark or Mr. Ferks. I'm not sure. Indy? Yeah, thank you. How many other Weingarten courts are there in Brantford? Similar situations? Are there more than just one?
Through you, Chair. Councilor Van Tilburg, so it's Weingarten courts, it's assessed by its classification of road. So there are probably over 40 class 6 roads similar to throughout Brantford. I can get the precise number for you, but it's around there. And when we say similar, those roads, they all do not have just one single property. They have multiple properties. So it's not really a similar apples to apples comparison when we state that. The roads are classified in the way that they're used.
Okay.
Maintained, sorry.
And is there any way of telling how many more there might be when we expand North Power Line?
I would not be able to answer that, Councilor Van Tilburg.
Okay. And how many times for a one-off purpose have we approved things like this, upgrades like this in the past? Is this something we commonly do?
Upgrades in terms of going from a roadway like this to a urbanized roadway?
Yeah.
Not that I'm familiar with, Councillor Van Tilburg. Typically, if we do a road reconstruction or road resurfacing, we'll bring up certain assets like AODA compliance and whatnot. There are some underground infrastructure utilities here. If there's any issues there, we would upgrade those. So, we don't typically, if there's no need, we don't typically upgrade the right of way, because that's additional maintenance if we're increasing the class level of that road.
Right. So does our recent foray into condition assessment and that lens that we're applying to all of our capital projects now, have we applied that to this situation as it compares to others, perhaps? Is this the worst of the worst that we've seen?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, I'd have to go back to look at our condition assessments of all our roads to see which ones are in good, fair, or poor condition. I wouldn't be able to know which is the worst roadway in Brantford. I would have to, there's many factors that play into the needing of upgrading or resurfacing roadways, so it'd be difficult for me to say.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Andy. Madam Chair, I'll listen to the rest of the discussion. I may or may not move an amendment based on the content of that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Tilburg. Next, we have Councillor Wall, please.
Thank you, Chair Antosky. I don't even know how to ask this question. Why do we own this road? Why does the city of Brantford need this? Are we not able to just come to an agreement with a property owner and just relinquish it or sell it? Or, it used to be, I guess, a road that connected the two roads. Why do we have this road?
So Through you, Chair Antosky, Councillor Wall. So there used to be actually a connection down from Terrace Hill with some stairs that were recently removed through a
I
capital
remember.
project.
I used to hang out there, and then
Yeah.
people got really upset when we took it away.
Yeah, and actually it was almost like a trail, but it was always a city asset for a very long time.
What value does it have to the city of Brantford?
So there is one property there, and we require frontage for that property. And that property is not actually the Winarden house that we know. It's a vacant lot property that requires frontage to a roadway. So that is why we need to provide that access to that roadway. So in order for you to answer your other question in terms of do we need it? We've offered it to the owner to say to have that roadway, but that was not accepted.
So, okay, that I didn't know. Okay, it seems like it's like a product of a bygone era. Like it just, what's the story then with the property that needs this road?
So through you, Chair, Councillor Wall, it's a vacant property owned by the same, it's the same, I guess, owner. It's just on the other side. There's businesses associated with it, so I'm not too familiar with the businesses, but it is a property owned by that house on the other side. And so that road actually leads and provides frontage for that property.
Is there not such a thing as like a reverse eminent domain where we just, instead of taking, we just give it?
We've offered that, but what we've heard is that it's more preferred to have a municipal right-of-way, proper road, curbs, etc.
Okay. Sometimes we discuss things at council that I've been told at a later date are just kind of like the normal job of the city of Brantford. Like, if it's our road and there's no way to get rid of that road, isn't it our responsibility just to take care of that road in general? Like, why is this coming? I don't understand why this is here before the room. Like, it just seems like this is just what we're supposed to do.
So through the chair, Councillor Wall, that we are providing our minimum maintenance to that roadway. So we are checking it once a month. We're regulated to do so. Other classification of roads we check more frequently. We plow it, like we said. We've now shifted our garbage as well up that road. So in terms of maintenance of the road, we are maintaining that road according to regulations that we are adhered to. So this was a request of the resident through to the councillor and to provide a full municipal right-of-way, which in our we don't right now. If we were to go in and maintain that road, it wouldn't be a recommendation, nor would it be for all other roadways that are throughout the city of the same classification.
Okay, thank you, Andy.
Sorry, thank you. Perfect timing, Councillor Wall. Next, we have Councillor Carpenter, please.
Thank you. Freeborn, the dead end of Freeborn would be a similar type situation without a turning circle and not urbanized. But I congratulate the ward councils for reaching out on behalf of their constituents. I just want to get some clarification from staff. So Google Maps says Winarden Road as court actually as going off Usher Street. So, but I believe that was the Sydenham Street that was closed off as it went down the hill. That right away actually came to Usher, and I believe the ward councilors know their ward, and they're telling us that it comes off of Buffalo Street. So I believe that, of course, because it's the councilors. Maybe we ought to let Google Earth know the actual correct name of the street. They have the wrong name and the wrong location for that street, but it would be helpful for them to know that. And I don't know what we're doing with the Sydenham Street right away that comes out to Usher Street. Whether I think when we close it off, I wasn't sure whether we closed it off all the way to Usher Street, but maybe staff can respond to that later on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Councillor Van Tilburg, please.
This is interesting. I looked at the road and it looked like it had been improved in use, because I had also for a very long time thought it was just a long driveway and a driveway to nowhere. So where does the road physically stop? Does it stop right at the castle itself, or does it go a little further?
So through Chair Antosky, yes, Councillor, it stops in around the, let's say the north end of that castle, just where the stairs used to be, and dead end there.
All right. Would the study consider joining those roads up?
The
Sydenham right down through Woodnarden.
So this report back would just be the cost to upgrade the existing roadway to a municipal urbanized cross section. So
Right.
it's not about extending it.
But my understanding is the water's coming down. So the water's rushing down in what is no longer the road part, the defunct road, past the council. That's why I was asking, or past the castle. That's why I was asking this question, because I wasn't quite clear at the time. So it's just literally to do the section from the castle and then down to Usher Street. I guess we'll have to see where that goes. I just want to say this, when I was a young lad, the castle was in great disrepair, and the castle no longer is, but the road had been. And so one way or another, we should be doing as good a care for that road, and up to and including maybe a future for it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van der Stel, we've got Councillor Otley, sorry, go ahead.
Here we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to emphasize that the curb is the most important part of this proposal in preventing rainwater and meltwater from going onto the Wynarden property. That is absolutely the most essential thing. That prevents his foundation and subsidence and so on. The secondary thing, in my opinion, is the surface of the road itself. It's very uneven, and with waste trucks and recycling trucks servicing the property now on Wynarden Court, it will deteriorate far more quickly, in my opinion. I'm no expert at this, but just looking at the condition of it, it just needs I think without having an assessment in place to determine, the actual condition of the roadway, it's a little bit of guesswork. So I just want to add that in there, Madam Chair, and hope that's it's taken. And for Councillor Van Tilburg, from Terrace Hill down to Arcgis Street or Buffalo Street, it's about a 40-foot height drop in a very short area. So great for skateboarding, but I ain't into that at my age. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Otley. I don't see any other hands up. I have a couple of questions. I'm just looking for some clarification. We talk about a class 6 road, and we're talking about minimum standards, and so can you help me understand a little bit what is expected for a class 6, and what class are we looking to bring this up to? I'm also a little bit concerned about precedence here.
Yes, to Chair, I'll probably get Mark to just speak a little bit more on the class. We do actually, when I talk about class 6 and minimum maintenance for this road, we actually treat this road as if it was a class 5 in terms of our standards, because the minimum maintenance really doesn't speak too much in regards to how to maintain class 6 roads. So we actually already enhance it a bit by treating it as a class 5 road for our minimum maintenance. But I'll throw it over to Mark just to talk a little bit about the classes in general.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, basically the roads are classified 1 through 6 based on speed and volume. So your 401, the highways are typically a level 1, and then you work your way through based on speed and volume, like I mentioned, and we're sitting at a level 6 for this one. So the minimum maintenance standards does require for level 5, for 5 and 6, that we do inspect the roads every 30 days. And if we do find, for example, a pothole that's more than 8 millimeters, centimeters, then we do need to fill it. Any cracks that meet, I believe it's about 5 centimeters that we do need to fill, or 5 millimeters, we do need to fill that. So it's just the inspection piece to it. By urbanizing the road or adding curb and gutter, it's not that it's going to change it from a class 6 to a class 2 or 3 or whatever. It's just the standard of the road. We're just increasing the standard that we put on that road.
And so is there any difference from, from class 2 to class 5 in terms of how deep a pothole has to be before we fix it? Is that all the same right across the board?
Through the chair, it's just how fast you need to fix it.
Okay.
So that is the standard. Once there's a certain depth of a pothole, you do need to fill it. Obviously, a class 2, because you're having more cars, more volume, higher speeds, you would want to get that fixed sooner.
Okay. And so this gets inspected monthly. It must be somewhere on our state of good repair. So it sounds to me like we're upkeeping the maintenance as required on the street.
Through the chair, we are keeping up the maintenance in accordance with the maintenance standards and city standards.
So this is asking for us to possibly look at the costs of fixing it up, and then the maintenance would be the same moving forward from there.
Through the chair, that's correct. We'd still be inspecting it every 30 days, or at least every 30 days. And if we saw a pothole crack, we'd be required to fill it in accordance with the maintenance standards.
So, okay, so this is really kind of looking at, let's see if we can get it fixed up and look at it again. Okay, I guess we'll see what comes back and what council wants to do with this. Thank you, Mark. I see no other hands, so we will go to the vote on this.
Councillor Toski?
Sorry, point of order.
Yes. I looked, I did not see your hand there. Go ahead.
No, my apologies. Sorry. That was all my fault. Thank you. One more question, if you don't mind. I'm not too sure who's on the call that can answer the question about. We've had our site alteration bylaw in place for quite some time now in the city of Brantford, and that was designed to help protect property owners from water that was runoff water that was accumulating onto their property from adjacent properties. So as I understand it, by the description of the 2 ward councillors and more, there has been an abundance of water that has found its way onto our property. And then,
Councillor Van Tilburg, if I can interrupt, and I would have interrupted earlier on this, we need to stick to the. I know that we're talking about some of the causes, but on some of these issues, we may have to go in camera. At this point, it's about,
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Without asking any further questions, I will also withdraw my proposed amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, now we can go to the vote. Thank you.
Clerk, my laptop has died. Yes.
Item 7.2, urban road cross section for Lenardon Court carries unanimously on recorded vote of 11-0. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sless, Carpenter, Vanderstel, Toski, Sokoli, Marn, Van Tilburg, Wall, McCreary, Utley, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. Lastly, we have one notice of motion. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to dissolve the OLT. Thank you.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Madam Chair. Well done. Good night, everyone.